Well, the clock is ticking. Countries around the world have less than 2 weeks to agree to a trade deal with the U.S., or they could face some stiff consequences. President Trump putting nations on notice with letters saying that they would face tariffs of up to 30% if they don't agree to make a deal by August 1st. There's some of those countries right there. Here to talk about what this could do to the American economy, we also have Sam Keebler, principal at the Lighthouse Strategies, as well as a former legislative director on Capitol Hill, along with Hillary Fordwich, president of Strellmark LLC. Welcome. Great to have you both here.
So August 1st, the U.S. is going to see who their true strategic partners are and who aren't. So this is the opportunity to see who wants to be with the U.S. moving forward.
Hillary, who do you think has the most potential to come to the table first? I mean, there's a good, obviously 30% is a big deal. Canada is facing that, which clearly they've been one of the biggest trading partners with the U.S. Do you anticipate that the pressure of this 30% tariff or more is going to make them come and try to argue this down and try to get something better?
Yes, I think it's a great incentive, John. I think they're going to want to come to the table. I think that some of the complex issues that we're facing and what makes it more difficult for them to come to the table, for example, Sam mentioned the different countries. He's absolutely right, these verticals, but the EU is a vertical, and yet it has many verticals amongst it because there are 27 countries, and you have the Germans putting a lot of pressure on Ursula von der Leyen. They still want to be able to export all their cars to the US, which, by the way, is 7-1. They export 7 cars for every 1 that they import from America. You can't find American cars in Europe very often. But also the French are pressuring with regard to the wine. So you've got so many different verticals. The EU has already capitulated because, remember, they did threaten ghastly retaliatory tariffs, which they did not impose. They capitulated. So I do think the EU probably is going to come in soon with the problem of there being 27 nations. And last but not least, remember when Henry Kissinger said, "I'll believe in one Europe when there's one phone number to call." That's the issue they have. Too many nations, too many issues.
Very good point. I want to get to this because the U.S. Treasury Department, the federal government, had this surplus. It was $27 billion just in the month of June. That's $526 billion compared to $499 billion spent the first time the surplus has happened in 10 years. So, if you look at this, Sam, Democrats have continued to rail against these, these tariffs and say it's a bad thing. But clearly, the money's rolling in.
That's exactly right, John. Since Liberation Day on April 1st, across the political spectrum, everyone was so concerned that this would tank our economy, and that there would be this chaos in the markets. And while we saw initial chaos, that it immediately bumped right back. And it shows how resilient our economy is and what President Trump has been doing the past 6 months, from cutting spending, regulation, and cutting taxes, the pro-growth policies that we're working on at the American Growth and Innovation Forum. And now what we see, like you mentioned, is the first surplus in nearly a decade from Trump's first administration in 2017. So, his strategy is working. So it's a great pushback.
A lot of pressure right now on the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, over not cutting the interest rates. Hillary, he's denying reports, though, that Powell could be fired soon, President Trump. He said that he would not do that. But, I mean, it is something that, it's something important here to President Trump. He wants those rates dropped. Do you expect that's going to happen sometime this year?
Actually, there was a projection originally that it would happen in either their July meeting or September. But don't forget now, with this phenomenal jobs report that came in and also the surplus that Sam just mentioned, we had that huge surplus, $27 billion in June. I think it's very unlikely they're going to lower rates, and that's going to make President Trump more irate. I will say this, remember, 93% of all of those on the Federal Reserve Board are registered Democrats. And remember that Jerome Powell was the one that was lowering the interest rates right before the election. So he was a lawyer by training, not an economist. Obviously, people say that Scott Bessent would be brilliant in that role. I think he would be, but he's so great at Treasury, we don't want to lose him from the Treasury. So anybody else, but let's keep Scott Bessent where he is.
That's a good point. He's wearing all the different hats. Believe it right there. Thank you so much for coming on. Hillary Fordwich, always a pleasure. Appreciate you coming on Sunday and spending some time with us.